Hey there, and welcome back to Discover What You Were Born to Do. I'm so glad you're here with me again. This week, we're going to walk through some decision making troubleshooting tips. I'll share with you the most common problems I see when people are making their career plans and some ways to work through those problems. As we get started, let's take a look at our roadmap, review what we've done so far, and see where we're going. Remember, to find work that matters to you, you need to know three things. The first is who you are. The second is how to make decisions that are aligned with who you are. And the third is what you want. Here's where we are on the roadmap. Last week, we walked through a decision-making framework to help you choose your overall career path. This week, we'll walk through some troubleshooting tips to help you avoid common problems. Next week, we'll talk about how to commit to your plan, even if it isn't perfect or it needs adjustment in the future. And in our final week, we'll talk about how to make the career you want inevitable. This is the step many people don't understand, and it's the difference between wanting a better career and actually making it happen. Before we do the breathing exercise today, I want to check in with your survival brain, that part of your brain that's working hard to keep you safe and alive, but that can also create some resistance as you move forward into the career you really want. Learning about leadership and decision-making is one thing, but actually making that decision can cause a lot of inner turmoil. It can bring up old patterns, self-doubt, and a myriad of other disruptions that can feel wildly uncomfortable. So I want you to take a moment and think back through the last week and check in with yourself. Where are you on the continuum of change? Does making this decision feel like freedom, or does it trigger discomfort? If it feels like discomfort, notice if the feeling is more like discomfort or more like excitement of learning a new skill, or maybe it feels like something else. Whatever you're experiencing is totally fine. I just want you to take an emotional temperature of where you are right now. As long as you're just on the edge of your capacity, that's a healthy change. But if you feel like you've slingshotted past your edge, take some time to bring yourself back into balance before you introduce anything else new. One way to help your nervous system is with the breathing exercise. Using your breath to self-regulate in times of stress is one way you can learn to show up for yourself. So let's do that now. Today, you can keep your eyes open or closed. Remember, this is designed to be used in the middle of a difficult moment, so I strongly encourage you to practice it in real-life situations so this becomes your default. Let's begin. Wherever you are, bring your awareness into your body. Take a couple of slow, deep breaths. Now gently even out your inhale and your exhale. Nothing extreme, it should feel natural to your body. If you lose track of your breath, just gently come back to the task at hand and return to evening out your inhale and your exhale. As your breath becomes even, and as you're ready, elongate your exhale. Again, nothing extreme, just a little bit longer than your inhale. I'm going to hold you here for one more minute to practice, but please listen to your body and only stick with the breathing pattern as long as it's comfortable for you. You'll hear some music in the background so you know I'm here, and at the end of 1 minute, I'll let you know. Great. You can let go of the breathing pattern and come back into a regular breath. Now that you're in a relaxed and more creative state, I want you to imagine the vision you laid out last week. As you wake up and open your eyes for the day, notice how you feel in this new reality. As you move through this ideal workday, I really want you to pay attention to how different your moods are from when you hated your work. Notice how this new career has changed your interaction with other people. Do you feel more relaxed? Is your mood lighter? Now notice how you feel about doing the work you've envisioned. Is there a sense of excitement or hopefulness about what you're doing? How has this career change affected your relationships in your personal life? What improvements are happening, big and small? How has your new career changed your ability to care for your own needs? And what's different about the way you approach your commitments? As you wind down from this ideal workday, notice your energy levels. Do you have energy left over from the day? How is your mood? And as you close your eyes, I want you to take a deep breath and feel the gratitude for the work you've done and the freedom you've created in your new career. Great. You can come back into the present moment. Now that you have a future vision and you've made a decision about how you're going to move forward, I encourage you to spend time thinking about it, envisioning it, and memorizing how this new reality feels emotionally and physically. As often as you can, give yourself the gift of experiencing this new future. So let's get into today's topic. So, decisions and choices are how we create things. It's how we as humans bring things into life. And it's not just the large scale decisions that change the course of our lives, it's also the small decisions we make each day. All the small choices we make pile up on one another to create our life and our future. So, taking time to learn to make the best decisions we can is the foundation of how we create the life we want. And this is whether we're talking about when we go to bed or what career path to take. I wanted to include a week on troubleshooting, partly because my years in technology taught me that there's often a workaround to the problems that we face. And knowing some of the pitfalls ahead of time can help us move through those problems a bit faster. But I also wanted to include it because I don't want you to be surprised or discouraged when you run into barriers. I want you to know that problems are part of the deal. They come with the territory of reaching for a goal, and I want you to feel confident that you can find a way to work through them. The way I've designed this week is to give you the top 10 challenges that I see, as well as some workarounds and some exercises to help you move through them. The first challenge is knowing when to make a decision. Of all the troubleshooting tips I can share with you, knowing when you should and shouldn't decide is the most important. I usually advocate for making a decision versus sitting on the fence, but there are times when it's to your advantage to put off a decision temporarily. When I was in my 20s, I noticed that there was a trend in my own decision-making. There were times I made decisions that were in my best interest, but there were other times when I made decisions that usually turned out poorly. So I came up with a guide about when I should and shouldn't make decisions to help keep me on track. I'll share it with you so you can use it as a template to start creating your own decision-making guide. First, I considered the long-term consequences. Deciding what you're going to eat for breakfast has a different long-term impact than moving across the country. There are some decisions that are just less risky, and they don't need a full judicial review. If the long-term impact was small, I just decided and moved on. But if there were long-term impacts, like accepting jobs, large financial decisions like buying a house or moving, dating or breaking up with someone, anything that could have a long-term impact on my life or my well-being, I would make sure I was in a good frame of mind to make that decision. The guideline was then, and still is now, no major decisions first thing in the morning before coffee, really late at night, when I'm not feeling physically well, when I'm exhausted or starving, when I've had anything to drink, and anytime during or immediately after an argument. For me, those are points in time where I tend to make decisions that aren't particularly well thought out and often end in regret. Basically, I try not to make a decision if I'm in a significantly negative feeling state or if I don't physically feel well, because when I'm relatively calm and content, I make better choices that give me more long-term happiness. Even now, if someone asks me to make a decision when I'm in a bad state, I try to remember to politely say, I need some time to think about that. Can I get back to you? Then I get food, sleep, or get calm, or whatever I need to do to get myself back into a place where I can make a decision. If I absolutely have to make the decision in the moment, which is rare, I'll make the best decision I can in the moment, but I'll try to come back and revisit it when I'm in a better place just to see if I need to change anything. Sometimes that's the next day, and honestly, sometimes it's weeks later. And to be clear, I am not always successful at this. I'm human and I make snap judgments, and I do and say things that I regret. But having some kind of structure lets me know when I'm off track in my own values and helps me course correct. Now I want to ask you, do you notice a trend in your own decision making? Are there times when you historically make decisions that don't turn out well? What guidelines could you create for yourself to help you make better decisions? And we'll walk through some questions later in the exercises so you can start to develop your own framework. The second thing I see clients struggle with is indecision. Indecision has a different flavor to it than deciding to wait to make a decision until you're in a better frame of mind. Indecision has the quality of avoidance. It's not wanting to make that decision, or maybe not knowing how, or being afraid of the consequences. In fact, indecision or waffling isn't just a lack of a decision. It's a decision, albeit unconsciously, to waste time and personal energy. Because when you decide and cut off the other options, there's clarity and forward movement. You have peace. With indecision, there is this background mental noise weighing the pros and cons, worrying about the outcome, playing out the scenarios over and over in your head and in your sleep. It doesn't feel like peace at all. If you seem to be stuck in indecision about something, get curious about why. Are you in a good state of mind to make the decision? If not, how can you get yourself calm and content? Do you have enough information to make the decision? If you don't, how can you get the information you need? Maybe you're afraid of the result, or you're avoiding the consequences. Notice if you're afraid of what people will think or how they will react. Or maybe you know what you want, but you're torn because it doesn't line up with what you think you should be doing or what you've been taught you should want. The essential question is what's holding you back from making a decision, and what can you do to solve those holdups? And there's a fine balance between taking enough time to make a wise decision and being afraid to pull the pin. Sometimes, especially if you're just afraid of the consequences, you simply need to decide and move on. Jim Collins, in his book Beyond Entrepreneurship, gives some commonly known wisdom. A bad decision is better than no decision at all. And here's why. The longer you avoid the decision, the more energy you waste. Energy you could be spending on things that move you toward your goal or doing things you care about. And the state of indecision is not only hard on your physical body, it's hard on your mental state and it's hard on those around you. The reality is, if you make a decision and it doesn't work out, you get to try again. You'll get valuable information back about what you need to do to course correct or adjust your plans. But if you wait too long to decide, something will eventually force your hand. You'll be back in the position of giving away your power, taking what you get, and wearing yourself out in the process. The third common problem that I see is a question that goes like this. What if after all of this, I still don't know what I want to do? What if I don't have a plan figured out yet? If this is you, I want you to know that's okay. You are not behind. You can't really compare yourself to other people or even the pace I've set for this course. Everyone comes with a different set of experiences and a different background. What's important is that you don't give up. Also, know that your plan doesn't have to be perfect. Honestly, I recommend starting with a plan that's broad and vague and just good enough. There have been many times in my own life where all I knew was, I don't want this life, I want something better. And that was enough of a goal to begin with. And if the worst thing in your life right now isn't your career, start where you are. Maybe you need to get out of a bad relationship or get financially stable. There's no perfect place to start. Whatever your goal, the framework from last week will still work. And if that framework feels too complicated, make it more simple for yourself. Remember, my suggestions are just a guide. You know what works best for you right now. What I do know is that if you're here in this course, you want something to be different in your life, and that is a goal you can work toward. You don't have to have a full-blown plan, just decide on one small thing you want to change. And if you really feel stuck, reach out to me and we'll find a solution together. The fourth problem that haunts people making big decisions is, how do I know if I'm right? What if I make a plan and it doesn't work out? This is a tough one because being right can feel like it's the holy grail of success in our culture. We make a practice of vilifying people for making mistakes, and then we turn around and condemn them for changing their mind when they learn from those mistakes. But making decisions means being wrong sometimes. And there's no way to be 100% accurate about everything in the world all the time, especially when you're trying something new. What's more valuable than being right is being willing to learn. When you normalize being wrong and changing your mind, you open up the possibility for your own personal expansion. When you find evidence that you've made a mistake, go back to the section in week 5 about accepting responsibility, feeling the discomfort, investigating the cause, and course correcting. And remember that the most important thing is to give yourself some compassion. One very common example I see is when a client has chosen a profession when they were very young, but now that they're adults, it's no longer fulfilling. They feel like they've made a mistake, but they're torn because they think that if they change their original decision, it's a character flaw because they aren't doing what they said they would do. In reality, all that happened is that they gained more information. When they were children, they didn't know about the lifestyle, the pay, the politics, or any of the ugly details of that career. If they had, they probably would have chosen something else. And I'm sure you've heard phrases like, "It's not a failure, it's a growth opportunity." And that's not a naive way of thinking. It's a mindset that can help you normalize making adjustments to your decisions and plans as you go. The fifth mistake I see is when people make a decision but then don't follow through on it, and then they blame it on their own laziness. In my opinion, laziness is profoundly misunderstood, and I hold an often unpopular opinion that laziness doesn't even exist. Laziness is just the name we give a behavior that we don't understand. Social psychologist Devin Price says, if a person's behavior doesn't make sense to you, it's because you're missing part of their context. It's that simple. And as you know from our work in the course up to this point, the mind needs to make sense of the world, so in an effort to create certainty, it comes up with the story of laziness. Laziness, like many of our behaviors, is just a signal of a barrier or an underlying problem that you don't understand yet. It's a sign that something needs care and attention, not punishment. But most of us have been taught the opposite, that without being driven, punished, and judged, we would do nothing. We're also taught that if we had our needs met, we would just slip into a wanton wasteland of sloth and no one would work another day in their lives. This narrative has us believing that we need punishment and deprivation in order to do anything productive. But if you talk to retirees, they typically only retire for a couple of years until they're unhappy because they're bored. I've worked with many retired professionals who, after a couple of years of rest, are ready to do something meaningful. They need a challenge, and many go on to launch new careers, not from a sense of fear, but from a desire to have purpose and meaning in their lives. Being labeled as lazy can have devastating effects on your life, not just your career. When people have been given this label, they may lean to one extreme or the other. One response can be living up to that label, since there's no use in fighting it. And the other is to drive ourselves into workaholism, desperate to be seen as hardworking, valid, and worth the resources we're using up on the planet. Tagging yourself as lazy traps you in a cycle of rebellion or people-pleasing. Both responses rob you of your true, authentic work and contribution to the world. If you've been told that you're lazy, or if you're telling yourself that you're lazy, I urge you to take a deeper look under the surface to see what need isn't being met or what barrier you're facing. Are you not taking action because you're exhausted or burned out? Do you feel stuck because you don't know where to start? Or you have someone in your home who isn't going to like this new direction? Do you have enough support or the kind of support you need? And if you're facing overwhelm, trauma, depression, or illness, these are very real and valid barriers. You aren't lazy, and you don't deserve to be shamed. You're facing a barrier, and you need support from yourself and from others. We know from years of research that shame doesn't motivate behavior in the long term. It actually does the opposite. When we're able to reframe laziness as an indication of something we don't yet understand, it transports us from a permanent diagnosis of moral failing to a place where action is possible. The barrier you feel isn't your fault. You aren't lazy. You need compassion and support. Self-confidence is the sixth problem I see clients encounter as they start to take action on the career they want. The misunderstanding that causes the problem is that confidence is a quality you either have or you don't. But self-confidence isn't like height, it's more like a muscle. Self-confidence is a characteristic that can be nurtured or torn down based on your environment and your experiences. When you try something new and you make progress, you gain trust in your abilities. And just like a muscle can tear from an injury, your confidence can take a hit when you experience a big setback or when you're put in a position where you continually fail. We can also lack confidence when we're learning a new skill. For example, if you're embarking on a new career field that's new and untested, it would make sense that you wouldn't feel as sure and steady in the beginning as you will in a few years. No matter what's causing a lack of self-confidence, it's a quality that can be nurtured through positive experience. The way to build your confidence is by taking small steps that you can complete successfully over and over. This slow and steady progress helps you build faith in your own abilities. Remembering past successes can also be useful. This is one reason that arts, music, sports, speech and debate, and even high school jobs can be really helpful for children and adolescents in school. The confidence they gain outside the classroom can help them feel solid in other areas of their life. If you struggle with self-confidence, I have 2 suggestions. The first is to start a list of all the things that you're good at, the areas you feel confident in, or that you've received appreciation for. To get started, you can look back to the strengths you listed in your first 4 weeks. Having a list like this is an effective reminder of where you shine when you're at a low point or when things just aren't going well. Are you a good cook? Are you a good friend? Can you dance? Even if it's not career-related, focusing on the areas you're good at can help build your confidence. And if you can't think of anything, grab a friend, a colleague, or someone who's in your corner to help you see where you are strong. The second suggestion is to list areas where you don't feel confident and brainstorm ideas for ways to grow your confidence in that area. If you lose confidence every time you apply for a new job, what are some ways you can help yourself feel more secure? Can you take time to work on building a solid resume ahead of time, or hire an expert to help you? Can you get help with interviewing so you feel more prepared? Brainstorm other ideas of steps you could take to make yourself feel more confident in those scenarios. A lack of self-confidence isn't a failing on your part, and it isn't a fixed diagnosis. This is something that can grow and change over time. You can take steps and find people who will help you grow your trust in yourself. The 7th challenge I see people face is when they think they need more training or education. We talked a lot in week 3 about not defaulting to the idea that you need more education in order to find more satisfying work. The narrative of having to go back to school and start over is a myth that keeps a lot of people from even considering new possibilities. But what if you just can't kick the idea that you need more education? Now that you know what you're naturally good at, your preferences, your learned skills, and you have a clear vision about what you want to do, it's appropriate to see if more education makes sense. And sometimes it does. I'm not against education by any means, just the default belief that every career move requires you to shell out thousands of dollars and a couple years of your life. One of the best ways to know if you need to go back to school is to look at the facts. So let's walk through some questions to double check. First, is a degree or certification an absolute requirement for the position you're thinking about? For example, law or medicine. Does the training have to be formal, or can it be equivalent experience? Do you actually need the degree, or do you simply need the education? Can you read a book or take an ad hoc class somewhere? Can you gain the education and experience you need in a job you're paid to do versus paying to go to school? Are you using education as a stall tactic or a way to justify why you can't have your dreams? This one's tough, but be honest with yourself. Do you simply want to go back to school because you like it and you're justifying that with a potential job switch? It's totally okay to go to school just because you like it. Are you afraid of making a career change and hoping more education will boost your confidence? In the case of opening a business, do you need the education or can you hire someone with those skills? None of your answers are wrong, but in my experience, education isn't the limiting factor to finding the work you want to do. Because if you do need to go back to school, that's a problem you can solve. That's a goal that can go in your plan from week 9. But if you're using it as justification that your dream isn't possible, that's worth rethinking. You don't need to go back to school to find work you care about. The 8th challenge I see people face is when they find themselves repeating an old pattern. The problem isn't the cycle, but the story they tell themselves about why they're repeating their past experiences. As you start to make decisions and take action to change your circumstances, it's not uncommon to notice that you're repeating old patterns. It's easy to fall into thinking like, I'll never change, or this always happens to me, or to beat yourself up for repeating a well-worn but destructive cycle from your past. As frustrating as it can be, this is an opportunity for growth. We repeat our patterns because on some level it's working for us or it's worked for us in the past. Patterns are sometimes how we're coping and surviving is really important. If you can shift your perspective from shaming yourself to understanding that the repetition is logical, you can crack open a door to a new reality. No matter how dysfunctional the pattern, this pattern is trying to help you survive, and that's worth appreciating. We all have a friend or a caregiver whose heart's in the right place, but their actions are sometimes clumsy and not helpful at all. Because we understand where they're coming from, we can appreciate their intent and help them understand what we really need. This is the same way I suggest you approach a cycle of behavior that you want to change. If you struggle with breaking cycles from your past, try this thought pattern. I know there's a good reason I'm repeating this, and I deserve compassion for where I am. I'm not stupid or lazy. There's simply something more I need to understand. There's a need that this behavior is fulfilling. What about this pattern is working for me? What benefit could my survival brain see in this behavior? What are other ways that I could fulfill this need for myself? We don't repeat our patterns because we're terrible people without any willpower. We repeat them because they serve a purpose and they're familiar. If you want to change your behavior, get curious about the logical reasons it exists. How are you benefiting from it, and how can you get that need met in a way that's a better fit for who you are now and where you consciously want to go? The ninth problem I see when people are making a career change is making decisions based in fear. As we've discussed before, decisions based in fear rarely produce a good result. Fear-based decisions are deeply rooted in our instinctive nature and are typically focused on our survival. It's not a bad thing, it'll keep you alive, but it's not a decision that will give you what you ultimately want. It's not likely to bring you happiness, growth, or help you thrive. Many of the tools we've covered in this course can help you mitigate this hyper-focus on safety and help prevent decisions based in fear. They can help you make decisions that will provide a bigger and more expansive result. The antidote to decisions based solely on fear is to make them based in a higher truth or an inner knowing. You might be scared that if you make this decision, you won't be able to provide for yourself and your family, but if you look calmly at your situation, that's not likely. And if you did find yourself in that position, you could find a way to solve it. You might be afraid that if you break off a relationship, that no one will ever love you again. But if you look at the data, there are several billion people on the planet. It's statistically unlikely that you cannot find another love. Let's experiment with these two mindsets so it doesn't seem like I'm just being cold and calculating. First, think about a decision you need to make from a fear-based mindset. Imagine all the bad things that could happen, and let yourself worry about the outcomes. Recite the difficult conversations and negative things that people will say. How does this worried mental state affect your decision-making? Does it make it hard to make the decision? Do you feel distracted or confused or overwhelmed? Do you feel like you just have to take what you can get and you feel desperate? And are you really thinking about your long-term happiness? Now take a couple of deep breaths and sink into the knowledge that you are physically safe and you can figure things out. You're resilient and you can find a way to handle the things that come your way. Also, you're allowed to want what you want. What is it like to make a decision from this mindset? Is it calmer, more integrated, and more true? Does this decision now seem like a problem you can work to solve? Does it help you see more possibilities? Our frame of mind has a profound effect on which part of the brain is activated and what kind of decisions we can make. It's something that over time you can learn to use to your advantage. Another mindset that can mitigate this fear-based decision-making state is to assume a good outcome to your decision. Make decisions assuming that it's going to work out in your favor. If it doesn't work out, you're capable of handling that. But if you don't assume it's going to work out, it makes it much more difficult to reach for what you really want. In fact, if your brain doesn't think you can do something, it's likely you won't even try. So the more you can relax your anxiety and assume that things are going to work out for you, the easier it will be to reach for bigger things. Consider this scenario. If you're afraid that your boss will turn you down for a raise, how likely are you to ask? You'll probably talk yourself out of it every time you try to screw up your courage. You may also grow more and more bitter as the months pass and your paycheck stays the same. You may even get so reticent that your quality of work and your attitude slip. You might start hating your job and lose out on opportunities for promotions, or worse, get fired. Now imagine you think there's a chance your boss will say yes. Would this help you gather up your evidence, present your case, and make a respectful request? Would your work quality and attitude improve in the weeks that you prepare? And even if their hands are tied and they can't increase your pay right now, are you more likely to get valuable feedback about how you can grow into a higher paycheck or what you need to do to get a promotion? At a minimum, your boss will know that you're looking to grow professionally. The last problem I see people struggle with is the fear that their dream isn't possible. Sometimes there's no amount of encouragement or reassurance that can ease the fear, but evidence can. If you feel blocked because you don't think what you want is possible, I invite you to do an exercise I call the list of hundreds. It's a simple technique that works with your brain's natural wiring. Our minds like evidence of human beings like us living through the activity we want to do. Evidence makes things feel safe. Your brain simply wants proof that you won't die if you try something new. And this is why being the first at anything is such a great feat and why it takes so much energy. But even if no one you know personally has ever had a career they found fulfilling or achieved success in the way that you want to, there are probably people on the planet who have or who've done something similar. The exercise is to do a brainstorm or an internet search for people who have accomplished things similar to what you want to do. The more people you can find, the better. I suggest you find at least 20 people, but 100 is better. The reason is, after a while, your brain will just give in. If you show it 60, 80, or 100 people who have done what you want to do and survived, your brain will have the certainty it needs to let go. This exercise can also give you a lot of inspiration to look back on when times get tough, as well as a list of resources and ideas about ways to accomplish your goal when you feel stuck. It can also give you a list of potential role models or people you can reach out to as resources. So let's put this into practice. The exercises for this week are designed to help you walk through and troubleshoot each of the 10 areas we discussed. If these aren't a problem for you, spend your time refining your plan from last week. You don't need to complete each exercise from today right now if it isn't relevant. Just know that if you run into these problems in the future, you have a list to come back to and revisit. Exercise 1 is when not to decide. In this exercise, you're going to create a when not to decide formula for yourself. Think back on your successful and your unsuccessful decisions and answer the following questions. When have you historically made decisions that didn't turn out great? How much sleep have you had? Were you hungry, angry, or tired? What other feelings or circumstances exist when you make decisions that you regret? 2. When you make your best decisions, notice what feelings or circumstances exist when you make decisions you're proud of. 3. What guidelines could you create for yourself to help make better decisions? Here are some examples. What are the long-term consequences of this decision? In which situations do you need to wait to make a decision? How long do you need to wait? And what can you do to get yourself into a place where you can make a good decision? Exercise 2 is a tool you can use when you're faced with indecision. If you feel stuck, get curious about why. Try out the questions below to get to the bottom of what's really going on. First, are you in a good state of mind to make the decision? If not, how can you get yourself into a good state? 2. Do you have enough information to make the decision? If not, how can you get the information you need? 3. Are you afraid of the result or are you avoiding the consequences of your decision? If so, what can you do to help yourself feel more calm? 4. Are you afraid of what people will think or how they'll react? If so, what can you say to people who disagree with you? The questions from the second mind trap from last week may also help. 5. Do you know what you want, but you're torn because it doesn't line up with who you think you should be? If so, what can you do to bridge the gap between what other people expect of you and what you want from your own life? 6. What other reasons do you have for your indecision, and how can you solve those factors? Exercise 3 can help you when you don't know what your goal is. Here are some questions to get you started. 1. What are 3 easy things you want to change in your life right now? 2. What's the single easiest thing you can change right now? 3. What can you do right now that will make the biggest impact on your situation? And if you're really feeling stuck about moving forward in your plan, please reach out to me so we can find a solution together. Exercise 4 can help you when you're worried about being wrong. Here are some questions to help you work through that possibility. 1. What is the most likely scenario if you make a decision but end up being wrong? 2. What is the worst case scenario if you make a decision but end up being wrong? 3. What will you regret if you don't make a decision? 4. What benefit will you gain from having tried and failed? 5. How would you recover if you did fail? And 6. What can you do to mitigate the worst case scenario? Exercise 5 can help you see past the mindset of laziness and find the real reason that you aren't taking action. First, what are you attributing to laziness that is holding you back? 2. What if it's not laziness? What barriers or needs can you identify other than laziness? 3. What can you do to meet those needs? 4. What are some workarounds to those barriers? And 5. What kind of support do you need to solve this problem and overcome your barriers? Exercise 6 can help you when you need to boost your confidence. First, list the areas where you're feeling a lack of confidence. Second, what are steps you can take to build your confidence in those areas? Third, which areas of your life do you feel confident about? And if you're drawing a blank, go back through your exercises from week 1, 2, and 3 and look at your strengths. Exercise 7 can help you make a decision when you think you need more education. First, is a degree or certification absolutely required for the position you're thinking about? Second, does your education need to be formal education or can it be equivalent experience? Third, do you need a degree or can you read a book or take a class? 4. Can you get the education and experience you need in a job you're paid to do versus paying to go to school? 5. Are you using education as a stall tactic or a way to justify why you can't have your dreams? 6. Do you simply want to go back to school and you're using your career to justify going back? 7. Are you afraid of making a career change and hoping more education will boost your self-confidence? And 8. In the case of opening a business, do you need the education or can you hire somebody with those skills? Exercise 8 can help you when you notice you're repeating a pattern that you want to change. If you struggle with breaking the cycles from your past, see if these new thought patterns help. 1. I know there's a good reason that I'm repeating this, and I deserve compassion for where I am. I'm not stupid or lazy. There's just something more that I need to understand here. 2. I have a need that this behavior is fulfilling. What is that need? 3. What about repeating this pattern is working for me? 4. What are other ways that I can fulfill this need for myself? And 5. How can I find support as I change this pattern? Exercise 9 gives you a way to shift out of making decisions based in fear. Think of a decision you need to make. Take a couple of deep breaths or do the breathing exercise that you've learned. Now, think of a decision that you need to make and make the assumption that things are going to work out better than you expected. Write down the steps that you would take if you knew things would work out in your favor. And finally, exercise 10 is the list of hundreds. If you doubt your dream is possible, brainstorm or do an internet search for examples of people who have achieved your career or who have done something similar. You can jot them down below. As usual, there are a few common mind traps I've noticed when clients start hitting roadblocks on their path. The closer you move toward your goals, the louder these voices can be. Mind trap number 1 is, who do I think I am? This thought is especially pervasive when you move from thinking about doing something to actually doing it, especially if you don't know anyone who's accomplished it. When you have a model of someone who's gone before you, it makes it more certain and seem more attainable to your survival brain. When we're in brand new territory, it's really easy to doubt yourself and question if you have the right to reach for more. When you're on the edge of growth, who do I think I am is a very effective tool your brain or people around you can say to put you back in your place and keep you in homeostasis. It can lure you back into the comfort of your old life. It essentially says you're not enough, which cuts at the base fear for most human beings and prevents them from moving forward. This mindset is also reinforced by society. Who do you think you are? What makes you think you're qualified? Who told you you could do that? And they'll never let you have a position like that, are all weapons that have been used to keep people in their place for centuries. Phrases like this can also be used when an argument moves from a debate on an issue, like you changing your career, to a personal attack or what we call an ad hominem attack. An ad hominem attack means the person you're debating with has run out of rational arguments and is grasping at straws to hold their ground. This is important to point out because when you hear yourself say, "Who do I think I am?" or you hear other people say, "Who do you think you are?" it's the same kind of baseless personal attack. It's not a reasonable critique that's designed to help you grow and move toward your dreams. If you're plagued by the thought, "Who do I think I am?" take a moment and honestly write down any reasons why you don't think you're qualified or you couldn't become qualified in the future and what things you can do to solve that. While it's important to be humble and get the experience you actually need, more often than not, this internal dialogue is just one more way your survival brain and society tries to keep you in your place. Mind trap number 2 is, I'm trapped and I can't start over. The story basically goes, I'm too far into my major, career, relationship, or my life to take off in the direction I really want to go. Now, I'm not advising that you jump ship without a plan. I've tried that, and you can do it, but it's the hard way. But believing that you're trapped forever is also not accurate. It's rooted in the belief that you don't have any control over your life at all, but you do whether you realize it or not. It's never too late to make a change, and you can do it in a way that doesn't put the rest of your life in jeopardy. If you want to disprove this myth, give your mind evidence to the contrary. Look up people who have switched careers later in life, like Toni Morrison. Her first novel, The Bluest Eye, didn't come out until she was 40, and she was 62 before she won the Nobel Prize in Literature. Julia Child was 39 when she first studied at the Cordon Bleu in Paris, and Mastering the Art of French Cooking wasn't published until she was 49. You can also look up Sally Krawcheck. She was 51 when she decided to become the CEO and co-founder of Ellevest. You can also take a look at the Kauffman Foundation's report I've linked in the transcript. It shows a rising share of new entrepreneurs in the 55 to 64 age group. Last, you can surround yourself with people on social media who are in your age or older who are making career changes. There are so many good examples these days of people changing careers later in life. You weren't put on the planet to work a job you hate, retire on the couch, and wait around until you die. You can make a difference at any age. Mind trap number 3 is, don't want what you can't have. The mere sound of these words just feels hopeless. Basically, it says, don't even try. This advice might seem like the safest way to avoid the pain of disappointment and possible embarrassment, but it's a mirage. If you only do things that are comfortable, reasonable, and have an obvious path ahead, you are most likely to repeat whatever your caregivers and culture have taught you to do. You're performing, not living. The bigger problem with this false sense of safety is that to stay in your tidy little box, you will have to numb out the longing to expand. Maybe you numb out by watching sports and playing out your ambitions on the screen, or maybe you shop or drink or keep your schedule overly busy. As humans, we can find endless ways to avoid the real pain of not reaching for our dreams. And it's also true that you might fail. Success isn't guaranteed. But failing to accomplish a goal isn't the problem. Bronnie Ware, in her book The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying, describes the themes she witnessed working with people in their last days of life. 2 of the 5 regrets are I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the expectations of others, and I wish I'd let myself be happier. None of the people regretted not conforming closer to the social norms and keeping their dreams small. If the mind trap "don't want what you can't have" pops up for you, write down what it is that you want and what would actually happen if you went for it and failed. What's the worst case scenario? And then write down what would happen if you succeeded. Honestly ask yourself what price you're willing to pay for playing it safe. And nothing says you have to reach outside your comfort zone. You're the only one who can decide that. It might not be right for you, and it might not be right for you right now, but try to consider the possibilities before you dismiss your dreams and give them a chance. As we wrap up, I want to reiterate a message I've said before. Making a decision to pursue work that matters to you and that feeds your soul is how you say yes to yourself. Staying on the fence and wanting to keep your options open isn't serving you. It's an illusion of safety. Everything you want in your career and your life is on the other side of the decisions you need to make. Now let's get you set up for the week with a clear plan of action. This week, I want you to take a look at your vision, mission, values, strategies, goals, and tactics from last week. Which areas need improvement or need to be shored up? And which, if any of the problems we discussed today, are showing up for you, and what can you do to solve them so you're ready to move forward? I also recommend that you continue reading the quick morning emails to help you integrate what you're learning, and do at least 1 minute of the breathing exercise every day. As always, you can find all of the research and exercises I've mentioned today in the transcript that's available for download anywhere you're listening to this. Next week, we'll take a look at your level of commitment to the result you want to create. Commitment isn't flashy or trendy, and it isn't something you enter into lightly, but it is how plans turn into reality. I want to leave you with a poem from Rumi called 2 Kinds of Intelligence. There are 2 kinds of intelligence. One acquired, as a child in school memorizes facts and concepts from books and from what the teacher says, collecting information from the traditional sciences as well as from the new sciences. With such intelligence, you rise in the world. You get ranked ahead or behind others in regard to your competence in retaining information. You stroll with this intelligence in and out of fields of knowledge, getting always more marks on your preserving tablets. There is another kind of tablet, one already completed and preserved inside you. A spring overflowing its spring box, a freshness in the center of the chest. This other intelligence doesn't turn yellow or stagnate. It's fluid, and it doesn't move from outside to inside through conduits of plumbed-in learning. The second knowing is a fountainhead from within you, moving out. As you make decisions about your career this week, remember that you have inner wisdom and an inner guidance that has been with you since the day you were born. When logic fails and when people doubt you, and when you doubt yourself, lean on your inner guidance to lead you home. I'll talk to you next time.